Hey everybody, Plushie here. I know it's been quite a while since I've made a spoken video because I've been pretty busy with my schoolwork. However, we're back, and today it is Easter, and what better way to celebrate this holiday with a servant who's not just a bunny but also an egg. And of course, we're going to talk about the highly anticipated Koyanskaya of Light. Her first skill is a targetable 50 MP battery that also reduces the target's skill cooldown by 2 turns, and it also has the merit of a 1000 HP reduction to the entire party, but it doesn't kill you, and it has a cooldown of 8 turns. Well, this is basically the skill that enables all this buster looping nonsense, because when you use this on your main DPS, they're able to use their MP charge skills multiple times and allowing them to achieve quote-unquote MP looping. And there are a couple of advantages to buster looping, such as they don't really care about how many enemies are on the opposite side because they don't actually use the refund from MPs to charge their own MP after using it. They just use this straight up charge. So as long as the number lines up, damage is the only other problem. So it's obviously a very powerful skill, perhaps one of the strongest skills in the game. And we'll get into more of buster looping in the farming section of the video. Her second skill is a targetable buff that increases the target's damage against human enemies for 3 turns, and also man attribute enemies for 3 turns, both by 50%, and it also gives them a 3-turn buff that allows them to gain 10 MP whenever they attack with their buster cards, and finally it also has a 20 star bomb, all on a 6-turn cooldown. So this is another very solid skill. Human enemies are very rare. They don't actually include any servants. They're just random human enemies like trash mobs or a couple of bosses such as Wodime, because he's a guy, or Kali in Lost Spell 7, he's also just a guy. And so this is not a very good trade. The only other servant who has an anti-trade who has been made fun of endlessly is Sanson. And yeah, this kind of shows how bad this is as an anti-trade, but sometimes when it hits. It's 50%, it's quite a bit. But the big one is the 50% anti-man trade damage, which is very widespread. Many servants have it. Technically it's 1/3 of all servants. Obviously I'm pretty sure man, sky, and earth are not distributed evenly among all servants, but just know that is a very wide coverage power mod, and it is 50% for 3 turns, so it's basically the premium number that you can get. The 3-turn effect that allows buster card usage to refund 10 extra MP is not that significant in my opinion. Sometimes when you want to push damage with your Buster Brave chains, but you still want to refund a little bit of your MP, maybe, but this is usually only going to pop up during challenge quests, and usually I don't find it that useful. If you do double Koyan Light though, it is 20 MP per buster card, so you can actually get quite a bit back from even if you do like a Buster Brave chain, you MP BB, and then you actually get 40 back. Sometimes it's even more than say if you used like a quick card on some servants. So it's good, it's a good effect, but it's definitely not the highlight of the skill in my opinion. But yeah, definitely sometimes can have really good effects. And finally, it's a 20 star bomb, and 20 star bomb, I think Koyan Light is one of the bigger reasons why stars become so cheap. The other reason is obviously star bomb CEs. So you don't really need to generate your own stars these days, and this is the biggest number, one of the biggest numbers at least, for especially on a support servant. It's really good. This in general allows your buster servants to crit right off the bat really easily, and it also enables some specific servants to activate their effects, such as the recent buster AoE monster Kukulkan. She needs massive amounts of stars to be able to use her skills right off the bat, but if you're running her with double Koyan Light, you start with 40 stars even if we don't consider any CEs, so she has absolutely no problem upgrading all 3 of her skills. Another servant that is pretty significant for this is Miss Crane, who also needs 20 stars to activate her MP. And in general, just Starbomb is never bad, but a lot of times people do have to waste team cost to bring a CE for it. But if you're a Buster team, you don't really have to because of Koyan Light. So really solid skill as well. And finally, her third skill, the one that defines her as a buster support, I suppose, is a targetable 3-turn 50% buster up, and it also increases the target's buster crit damage by 50% for 3 turns, and finally it increases the buster card's star absorption rate of the target by 5,000% and on a 6-turn cooldown. So this is the standard 50% card type buff for 3 turns for any quote-unquote meta supports that we define anyways, and the crit number is actually kind of low in my opinion compared to Scotty, because Scotty does give you 100%, but I guess this also has the added bonus of giving your buster cards 5,000% absorb up for the target. So this is very much going to guarantee the target crit with their buster cards. Even if you use a single Koyanskaya Light with the 20 star combined with this effect, their buster cards is almost always guaranteed to crit. It's a really, really good skill, obviously. That's what makes her a meta support, but in terms of meta support, it's pretty standard, but, still really solid. So let's take a look at her passives, and she has a lot of very offensive-based passives, which is quite interesting because most people do use her as a support, but she's actually not too shabby as a damage dealer. So she has Riding B. Yes, she rides a motorcycle, so she has to have Riding B, unless your name is Rider Kintoki, but it's not that significant in my opinion. I guess it's kind of okay. She does have 2 quick guards. But then she has Independent Action EX, which is a passive 12% critical damage boost. That's quite a sizable number. And then she has Independent Manifestation, so she has an additional 6% passive crit boost, making it a total of 18% passive crit boost, which is quite large, almost 20%. Of course, it also gives her, instant kill resistance a little bit, and also a little bit of mental debuff resistance. Sometimes they come into play, but usually they're not that significant in my opinion. And she also has Shapeshift, which is a passive arts up by 10% and also a star gen by 10%. So she has 2 quick cards, so the passive star gen is pretty okay, especially if you use like a Mighty Chain, then the quick card's actually not too shabby. But then she also has one of the best arts cards in the entire game, as I've shown in one of my more recent videos. She only loses out to Erish Kigal in terms of singular arts card base refund, and having this extra 10% on top of it makes her arts card pretty crazy. If you're able to crit with her arts card, she can refund like over half a bar of MP, which is quite interesting if you want to use her as a damage dealer. But finally, this is the biggest one in my opinion. She has Goddess Metamorphosis Guns, which gives her a passive 20% MP damage up. This number belongs to an active skill. This is not supposed to be a passive. And this actually makes her a pretty good AoE DPS when you pair her up with Oberon. However, this is a little bit more awkward because she herself doesn't fit into her own farming system that well, which we'll get a little bit into in the farming section, but it should be pretty obvious that having an 8-turn cooldown 50 MP battery is not the best if your whole farming system is based on cooldown reduction and recasting your skills. And finally, her MP is an AoE 8-hit buster MP, so it does generate quite a bit of stars. It has an effect which gives her 20% attack up that happens before the MP hits, so it does apply to the MP itself, as well as the following card chains if you decide to use it. And it also reduces all enemy charges by 1, and this is actually quite an underrated effect. This can stall out the enemy and prevent them from using MP quite a bit if you're able to, sort of reuse her MP multiple times. And it's actually not that hard to reuse her MP. As I've said, she has pretty good arts card, and you can also just pair her with someone like Castoria and Merlin and try to do a pseudo stall team against maybe Rider enemies, and she can be the main damage dealer. And yeah, she can very much stall out the enemy and prevent them from MPing for many turns consecutively. So yeah, really underrated effect in my opinion. And finally, her overcharge effect is a AoE MP charge that scales from 10% to 30%. A little bit reminiscent of the caster Tamomo, but obviously the number is going to be a little bit smaller. This is actually also a pretty good effect. This is what enables a lot of multi-damage dealer teams that involves Koyan Light actually MPing to exist, such as the very famous one I like to use, which is the double Koyan Dark, single Koyan Light sort of team that doesn't require any additional CEs. It just needs maxed out pen skills, and the damage isn't the greatest, but you can mix and match, and this is usually a pretty solid effect in like multi-core farming. And of course, if you have a servant that can give overcharge, this is also really good. Once again, like Koyan Dark, who can give her overcharge, so she can charge the entire team with more MP. So she has a pretty good mixed, MP with good utility as well as okay damage, because the 20% attack up is actually pretty good if you do use her card afterwards. So how do I feel about Koyanskaya of Light? Well, does it really matter? She's a brand new meta support, and there's always going to be a lot more discussion regarding those, maybe talking about the farming system or some other topics that I really want to revisit actually, such as the age-old question of Oberon first or Koyan Light first. That is a can of worms that I can't wait to reopen. I know I've made a video on that before, but after that until now, I've watched a lot more other people's views on it. I've read documents, and I've talked to a lot of people in my Discord, watched a lot of new videos that have come out since my video. So yeah, my perception has shifted since then, but yeah, I guess you guys have to sort of wait for it to come. I hope this is not another empty promise. I'll try very hard. Thank you guys for being really patient. Anyways, so I feel like most people that play JP are really familiar with the buster looping system already, but I will still try to give you guys a introduction to it. The key point to buster looping is that it's all based on MP battery numbers as well as cooldowns. So buster looping in a way is actually more simple than quick and arts looping, because you don't actually gain MP back from hitting the enemies with your buster MP. What you have to do is manually charge your MP to 300% across 3 turns, so you're able to fire off your MP 3 times. Usually that includes your starting charge CE, the 2 Koyan Lights which will provide you with 100 MP charge, and your MP charge skill on your main damage dealer would have to make up for the rest. So first of all, let's talk about no plug suit. If we don't add in yet another MP charger to the mix, so if you use a K-scope plus the 2 Koyan Lights, you already have 200 MP charge down. Now you only have to make up for the remaining 100. And many buster AoE servants have 50 MP batteries, so 50 times 2 is 100, and usually with the cooldown reduction with Koyan Light, you're able to double cast your MP charge skill. So boom, you get a total of 300 MP charge, and you're able to 3-turn loop with your buster DPS. But here's the other problem you have to worry about, which is cooldown. Are you actually able to double cast your MP charge skill? So usually in these comps, you use a K-scope. So when you use a kaleidoscope, you don't use your charge skill on turn 1. You usually use it on turn 2. You always want to use it as early as possible, so you get the natural cooldown reduction after you progress a turn. So you get 1 turn of cooldown reduction naturally when you progress from turn 2 to turn 3, and then you add in 2 Koyanskaya of Lights, and it's 4 extra turns of cooldown reduction. So now your cooldown is reduced by 5, and then if you throw in Atlas Academy Mystic Code, that's another 2-turn cooldown reduction. So you get a total cooldown reduction of 7 turns. This is why the conclusion is any AoE buster servants with a 50 MP charge that has a cooldown of 7 turns or less is able to double Koyan loop. This is based on the team that uses a kaleidoscope on turn 1. That was a lot. And of course, there are also offshoots to this system. The first one that people also like to talk about is Artoria. So Artoria only has a 30 MP battery. So how does she make up for the 100 MP battery? Because if you double cast the 30 MP battery, you only get 60. You're still 40 off. Well, Artoria's MP effect allows her to refund 20 extra MP back whenever she uses her MP. And you gain this effect twice before the 3rd turn, because you use her MP once on the 1st turn and you use it again on the 2nd turn. So on the 3rd turn, she gains an additional 40 MP from these effects combined. Combine that with her 30 MP battery being used twice, that is a very beautiful 100%. And what's better for Artoria is that her battery's cooldown is only 5. And remember, if we exclude Atlas Academy Mystic Code, you get a total of 5-turn cooldown. 4 from the double Koyan light, and 1 from the natural progression from turn 2 to turn 3. So this is why Artoria Saber is a really good Buster Looper, because you don't need to use a Mystic Code for it. She just is able to double cast her battery because it has such a short cooldown. And with the extra refund on her MP, she is still able to make up for the missing 40 MP charge. So now let's get into the second type of Buster looping, where you don't use a Kaleidoscope, but you use your damage dealer's MP charge skill on the first turn. What advantage doing this has is that you gain 1 extra turn of cooldown reduction. So you get a total of 2 turns of cooldown reduction naturally, compared to the 1 turn from our previous example. And with double Koyanskaya of Light thrown into the mix, you get a total of 6 turns of cooldown reduction. And many Buster AoE servants MP charge skill has a 6 turn cooldown, so you don't even need the help from Atlas Mystic Code. However, remember when we talked about the last example, we were trying to make up for the missing 100 MP charge. However, in these kinds of teams, you usually start with a 50 MP charge CE, and with double Koyanskaya of Light, that makes 150. So you would have to actually make up for 150 additional MP charge, and most damage dealers are not able to make up for 150 MP charge even if they use their MP charge skills twice. This is where you bring in another MP charger. So there are some advantages to this composition. First, you get more damage because the 50 MP charge CE gives you more damage, and the additional MP charger also gives you more damage. And secondly, this team is actually more inclusive, and it allows servants with 30 MP charges without additional effects like Artoria to also 3-turn loop. So let's get into the numbers for both cases. So let's say you start with 50 MP and then you use double Koyanskaya of Light. So you have to make up for an additional 150% MP charge. Let's say your MP charge skill gives you 50 MP battery and you can double cast it. That's another 100%. So you're missing 50 MP charge. So this is where you can plug suit in any servant that gives you 50 MP charge to make a total of 300 MP charge and be able to 3-turn loop. So very common choices like Rhaenys, Waver, and Castoria, or even Scotty if you want, can all work with this composition. But now enter Oberon, who's able to charge your damage dealer by 70 MP instead of just 50. Obviously, with the exact same setup, he can replace, Waver, Castoria, or Rhaenys for even higher wave 3 damage. You just get a bonus 20 MP. But where it gets interesting is how he also enables Servant with 30 MP charges to do that. So if you do a starting 50 MP charge, double Koyan Light with a total of 150, now adding Oberon, which has 70, you get a total of 220, and you would have to make up for 80 MP. If you double cast a unit's 30 MP charge, you get a total of 60 MP. So you add that to the 220, you get a total of 280 MP charge. Well, that isn't enough, is it? Because you need 300 to loop your MP 3 times. Well, there's a cute little system called the append skill system, and the second append skill of any servant just so happened to be a 20 starting MP charge if you do max it out. So add that 20 to the 280, you make a very beautiful 300 MP charge. So yes, with this composition, any AoE Buster servant that has a 30 MP charge is able to 3-turn loop anything with a 50 MP start CE and a maxed out append to skill. This enables many previously unthought of servants like Altera or even Siegfried to 3-turn loop with Buster. Now obviously there are a lot of caveats to this, how there are CEs that has 60 MP charge instead of 50, or servants that has additional MP charge effects on their MP, kind of like Artoria and all that, but I don't want to get too much into it. And finally, I want to take some time to talk about the 3 exceptions that people also really love bringing up, who are able to 3-turn Buster loop with no starting charge whatsoever. So first of all, let's talk about Melusine. So Melusine is more simple. She is basically a 30 MP charger that packs her Own K-Scope. Her skill 3 is a one-time use 100 MP charge that just helps her fire off her MP on the first turn without having to have any starting MP charge on her CE. So you get the 100 from her skill 3, you get the 100 from Double Koyan Light, and you get 70 from Plug Suit Oberon. Now you only have to make up for 30, and Melusine's first skill is a 30 MP battery. The interesting thing about this comp is you can actually waste her first skill on the first turn just for the damage boost because it has a very short cooldown, and when you use Double Koyan Light, you're able to double cast it on the third turn to make up for the extra 30. So technically Melusine teams do charge 330 MP, but you can just do it for the damage. Second one is the next year's anniversary servant, Arcuade. So Arcuade has a 100 MP battery with a 7-turn cooldown. Now, do remember that when I talked about teams that use their MP charge on the first turn that doesn't use Atlas Mystic Code, you get 2 turns of natural cooldown reduction, 4 turns from Koyan Light, and you get a total of 6 turns. And that is not enough for Arcuade to double cast her 100 MP battery. So what you need to do is reduce the cooldown by an additional 1 turn. You can either achieve that by simply using Atlas Mystic Code or plug suiting in another unit that can reduce a cooldown by 1 extra turn, such as Edison, Summer Ibuki, Okuni, and the most recent Takasugi. However, obviously she's not going to have nearly enough damage boost compared to someone who is able to do Plug Oberon. If you double cast her 100 MP battery, that would be 200, and add on to the Double Koyan Light's 100, you get a 300 MP charge. So once again, she doesn't need any additional charge from her CE. And finally, the most convoluted one, Koyanskaya. So Koyanskaya has a 5-turn cooldown delayed 80 MP battery, as well as a 5-turn cooldown 30 MP battery. So what you can do is, on the first turn, you do the 30 MP battery, and then you use his delayed 80 MP battery, so nothing happens. And then you either use the Mage's Association Mystic Code, or you max out his second append to get 20 extra, so now he has 50 MP charge. And then you use one of the Koyanskaya of Light's cooldown reduction battery to charge him to 100. Boom, he MPs. On the second turn, the delayed MP battery happens, he has 80 charge now. And his cooldown is reduced by 3. 2 from the first Koyan Light, and 1 from the natural progression of the turn. And then you use the other Koyanskaya of Light's battery to charge him to 130. But then you can use the delayed battery again. You use it, nothing happens, he MPs with 130 MP charge. Boom. And then the final turn, the delayed battery procs again, he gets 80, and then you use his skill 1, which is a 30 MP battery, to make his MP charge 110. And then boom, once again he MPs, thus completing the 3-turn farming with Koyanskaya. The advantage of Koyanskaya is 1, he doesn't actually need to plug in anyone. 2, he doesn't actually need Atlas. You just have to max out his append if you don't want to use Mage's Association. And 3, he can still have the choice to plug in Oberon due to how little his cooldowns are, so you don't have the Arcuade problem of needing an additional cooldown reducer to plug in or just using Atlas. So anyways, I hope this is not too much. This is a lot of information, I have to admit. Buster looping is not the easiest thing to understand initially, but of course after you've found your most comfortable composition, you're going to be just pressing buttons like you don't have to think about it. Post-editing plushie here. So there's also a way to loop with Koyanskaya that doesn't require you to max out his first battery, and I'm too lazy to explain it again, so I'm just going to play it on screen right now. And it does require Mage's Association, unfortunately. If you do want to use another Mystic Code, you would have to max out both his Append 2 and his Skill 1. So there you go. let's get into more farming stuff, because Koyan Light's MP damage is actually not too shabby. Also, her MP has an AoE MP charge effect, so there are teams that can include her where it includes multiple damage dealers, and she can clear an early wave while also charging her teammates. And even if you want to use her as the main Buster Looper, she can still do it. She can still 3-turn loop with a 50 MP start CE, with Plug Oberon and another 50 MP charger. She can actually loop her MP 3 times as demonstrated in this clip right now. So you can even use her as the main DPS. And once again, her MP damage synergizes well with Oberon because of her Goddess Metamorphosis gun passive. In challenge quests or boss content, there is perhaps no support that can provide as much explosive raw amounts of offensibility as Koyanskaya of Light. While in farming, Koyanskaya of Light really importantly recharges your MP charge skills. For damage, she also recharges your damage dealer's steroid skills, and many damage dealers has very nasty steroid skills. So when you get to double them up on the 3rd turn, they're gonna do so much damage. Koyanskaya teams in challenge quests usually focus fire in the first couple of turns. They kick your damage dealer into overdrive, but then after you run out of gas, you sort of also run out of survivability, at least if you run double Koyanskaya. If you thought double Scotty quick teams put you on a clock, double Koyanskaya Buster teams would put you on an even shorter clock, because Koyanskaya not only has no defensibility even on their MP compared to Scotty, she also even reduces your entire team's HP by 2000 if you double Koyanskaya. And it's obviously not like devastatingly high, but it's also not insignificant in a lot of cases. However, there are actually ways to put Koyanskaya of Light in a slower team, because her MP, as I've said before, has the ability to control the field and stop your opponents from MPing, or rather delaying them, and very importantly, it delays everyone. So unlike Tamamo, which is only single target, if you're facing off multiple enemies, Koyanskaya of Light can actually push back all of their MP turns by 1, which can be very significant in challenge quest contexts. And the 2-turn cooldown reduction obviously is not going to be nearly as explosive if you don't double it up, and you don't get to stack your skills twice, but it's actually still a really valuable effect. In many slow team compositions, people like to use Atlas, and they probably can know how broken that Atlas skill 3 is. No matter if you use it on the main damage dealer to keep up their damage for a couple more turns, or you use it on a support to allow the support servants to use very valuable skills, it's always going to be a very good effect. And if you bring a healer, they can easily mitigate the very small amount of damage a single Koyanskaya does to your entire team. In conclusion, Koyanskaya of Light is one of the most powerful servants in the entire game. If you want to play Buster servants, I highly recommend pulling for one, because Buster servants with or without double Koyanskaya is 2 different worlds. Koyanskaya is the strongest acceleration support in the entire game. She also enables the brand new Buster looping system. Buster looping systems have its merits and demerits. Of course, it doesn't care about enemy counts because it doesn't actually use refunds, so that's a good point. But there are also problems where, cooldowns matter, or you can't really use a black grill. So a lot of times in farming, damage doesn't actually overtake arts. But the damage is actually also not as bad as when you use like quick teams with K-Scope, because you can actually double up the steroids of your damage dealer. So I would say it's still a pretty solid composition that you can very much rely on. Until 90++ comes out, then you might have to sort of adjust your team a little bit. Even outside of those 2 extreme cases where Koyanskaya of Light absolutely excels, she's also very solid. Obviously, her biggest weakness in my opinion is that she doesn't fit that well outside of Buster teams unless you're fighting against man attribute enemies. Despite her skill 1 cooldown reduction being really broken, usually you would want another tertiary support instead of Koyanskaya of Light. She's not nearly as universal as Castoria, where she can fit in any card type, any team, and be, super valuable. And of course, I don't think this video is nearly enough time left for me to give a good answer with Koyan Light first or Oberon first, but as I've said before, I would say if you don't care about Buster teams, Oberon takes priority every time, and if you do care about Buster teams, I think Koyan Light usually does take priority. But even if you don't really care about Buster teams, I will still recommend you pick up a copy of Koyanskaya of Light after Oberon's raid up, because she does get 2 reruns afterwards, even though the 2 reruns are spaced pretty wide apart. Because, who knows, maybe you get a Buster Servants in the future and they just don't function without double Koyan Light. A lot of times that actually happens. Servants such as Archwade or Melusine lean very heavy on your you owning Koyanskaya of Light. So as a meta support, I still recommend you to pick 1 copy of her up. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. I'm glad to be back. I know it's a little bit brief despite the video being already pretty long. There's many things to discuss regarding this kind of character that shapes the meta, but I want to deliver the most amount of information in the shortest time possible. So I hope you guys enjoy, and good luck on pulling for Koyanskaya of Light when she eventually comes to NA. And I'll see you guys in the next one.